The poem I've chosen is The Gift Outright by Robert Frost. This poem was written by the famous poet in 1941. It had two famous readings of it, the first being at the College of William and Mary and in December of 1941, and the second and more famous reading occurred when he addressed the public at my favorite president's inauguration, JFK, on January 20th, 1961. The poem goes a little like this. The land was ours before we were the land's. She was our land more than 100 years before we were her people. She was ours in Massachusetts, in Virginia, but we were England's, still colonials, possessing what we were still unpossessed by, possessed by what we now no more possess. Something we were withholding made us weak, until we found out that it was ourselves. We were withholding from our land of living, and forthwith found salvation and surrender. Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright. The deed of gift was many deeds of war, to the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, artless, unenhanced, such as she was, such as she will become. From the title of the poem, one's first impression would be that the poem is about an unalienable right, or a right given to us, but not asked for. This impression would be true, as the theme of this poem is freedom. Freedom is discussed throughout the length of this poem. At first, Frost talks about colonization. When he speaks of colonization, he recounts how the land had no freedom. We owned the land before, it had owned us. Although we had seemed to have some freedom in this sense, we did not. He goes on to speak of how we were still possessed by the Englishmen. We did not have the freedom from the state of England. We were still controlled by things we didn't even know we were controlled by. However, he states that we had found our freedom towards the end of the poem, but within this freedom came with responsibilities. We had to fight for our land and write our own story of what America is to become. By the end, we had the freedom of the land. As shown, this idea of freedom is presented gradually. This poem relates to our world today in a few different ways. The way in particular that stands out to me is the issue of immigration. Right now, immigration is all about the freedom of having families stay together. The freedom is being stripped from individuals that are trying to make a better life for themselves in the land of freedom. However, it seems to be a huge issue right now. They seem to be possessed by a greater force, just like we were once possessed in earlier times.